Most Nigerians are now familiar with the catchphrase that if you fight corruption, if you're fighting corruption, corruption certainly is fighting you back twice as hard. Now, this scenario seems to be playing out in the country today. Perhaps this is why President Muhammadu Buhari decided to take the fight against corruption to the next level, precisely the doorstep of the alleged perpetrators. Now, the weapon is the Executive Order number 6. Now, barely a day after President Buhari signed this Order number 6, 2018, her reactions and counter-reactions have trailed the bold move by the President. Now, what is it all about and how will it work? That is a focus on Nigeria Today. My name is Blessing Abu. Welcome to Nigeria Today. Now, to address this issue on the program, I have with me, welcome Barrister Kayode Ajulo, of course, is a legal practitioner and a familiar face on our programs. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Well, also, I'd like to welcome Mr. Edwin Ihoria, Transparency and Accountability Manager for Africa. Welcome to Nigeria Today.
Thank you very much.
Yes, gentlemen, so much buzz about this declaration of Executive Order number 6, and well, for some who might not know why or what it's all about, let's attempt to put some kind of definition and understanding to that. Barrister?
Well, thank you very much. You know, when we talk of executive orders, it is more or less a way that the president uses as chief executive officer. By the time you check section 130 of our constitution, talked about there will be a president who is the chief executive officer of the federation. And it's another way, more of like a directive to those under him, that is the executive agency, to tell them this is the way you need to do something. And sometimes it is more like trying to invoke some of the policy of the government. And for the past 3 years now, the president, true to type, has been signing some executive orders. This one is going to be the 6th one. And for this 6th one, he's just trying to show what we all seem to know him for, that is to fight corruption. And I believe he needs to be commended, really. Right. And to let them know that the fight is still on, and some of the things that I believe may be the impediment in this fight against corruption. And because of that, he made such order to say what we still have in our law. Thank you.
Right. All right, Mr. Kwaria, this is a critical tool in the hands of the executive, and for this particular one, for suspicious assets and some other attendant issues. Why is it expedient for us to take on this at this time?
Okay, so I think we should look at the fight against corruption in several dimensions. There is the preventive side of it, and then there is the enforcement side of it. So this particular executive order basically focused on the enforcement side of it. And the reason is that with all of the prosecutions that we've seen, many people who have, talked about the anti-corruption fight in Nigeria have had issues with, where are the convictions? Why are people still walking the streets? Who have we convicted? So the feel is that the rate of conviction is not as fast as it should be, because the proceeds of corruption are being used to make the process stall. So I think this executive order basically is more of reacting to that aspect to say, if the people who are being prosecuted for corruption, and we know or we suspect that the proceeds of corruption are still with them, and they still have access to them, and they are still using them, right? And in fact, over time, the value of the assets may not even be available anymore by the time you're through with the prosecution. Right? So this executive order is basically reacting to that to say, we cannot allow you to use our suspected proceeds of corruption to fight the system or to drag the prosecution, as it were. So this is that kind of reaction to that.
All right, still with you. I know, yes, the fight for corruption is still on, and through the several agencies. We've seen also multi-sectoral agencies being put together to actually address some of this issue. For some, so why would we now need an extra executive order or a policy to actually shape that if the institutions are there?
Okay, you see, in the executive order, in the second schedule in that executive order, there's a list of about 20 agencies that the executive order listed that could use the provision of this executive order, giving the Attorney General the power to ask any of them to implement those provisions. Okay. Now, those 20 that have been listed all have their own enabling acts, right? And they have their own prosecutory powers. But of course, the Attorney General is the overall prosecutor, in the country. Now, with the provisions that have been made in their own extant laws, this is supposed to help them accelerate their own fight, in the sense that when you have a case against somebody, right, as you're proving that in the court of law, right, the people that you are prosecuting should not have the resources to draw back your investigation, draw back your prosecution. And as such, while they have enabling laws doing this executive order kind of streamlines that and basically say, when you go, this is a new policy in Nigeria. The court should respect this order, knowing that it comes with an aim. By the way, like Barrister said, executive orders are aimed at specific reforms or policies in the country, targeted at specific things. So they're not really like the law that we know. So this is specific. So when they go to the law court to say this guy is being prosecuted for this, so the judge has the latitude to determine, oh, this case, it has merit, it doesn't have merit, this suspected property should not be available to the person who is being prosecuted, so that he cannot use it. So again, there's existing laws, but this one is basically targeted specifically at this issue, and that's why it is being held right now.
Okay, let's fall back on the lawyer with us. And in your own opinion, of course, there had already been factors stalling some of the cases or delaying corruption cases. Can we take a look at some of them that had a kind of stifled process of taking on prosecution or even outrightly dealing with corruption cases?
Well, one thing is this, we have to get some things clear. When it comes to corruption cases, I must say, some of them, they always like to stifle it because most of them, they are afraid, because they seem to know where they are going. But I always believe that the prosecutors, it is their duty. It is them to have the political and whatever will to ensure that the right thing must be done. And again, in all fairness to Nigerian system recently, we can see that there are plethorias of laws, new one, that have been trying to take care of this. Like if you check our Administration of Criminal Justice Act, there are some things that you can do now, things that people always do before, that they used to stifle these prosecutions or phases, that you don't need to do that. Even sometimes when you raise objection, despite your objection, the case will still continue. And I just believe that what the president just tried to do is try to let you know that this is, sometimes we always call it body language. This government seems not to believe in body language. You need to really say it as it is. And as a president, you need to come presidentially to say this is what it is. From what I believe from that executive order, you still need to take recourse to court if you really want to stop anybody from using those suspected properties and co. And that is why I said earlier, the president needs to be commended from trying to show us this is the way manner I want to take Nigeria, particularly when it comes to issue of corruption. Okay. And again, is to let them know that it is not job as usual to business as usual. Let me use our word really. Business as usual to say that once you are charged to court, then you look for a way to stifle the prosecution stages.
For me, I think just to write on that, to say that at this point in time, President Buhari was named by his peers as the champion to fight corruption in this year, in 2018, because at the African Union, he was named the champion of the theme. And the theme is winning the fight against corruption, a sustainable path to Africa's transformation. If we were in Mauritania, we were in Mauritania just this week. And when he made the call, he made a rallying call, right? And if you see the declaration, everybody understood. 22 countries spoke. Heads of state spoke on the theme of corruption, and you could see the eagerness. Everybody recognized that it's a cankerworm, and there is nothing you can do to bring Africa out of these doldrums of underdevelopment except you deal with the issue of corruption. And so him being the champion needed to come back again and show that I'm walking the talk. I'm not just a champion. At home, it is, people need to understand that our fight against corruption is not child's play. Okay. So that's one of the things that I think, this executive order.
Okay, why we look at where this order is trying to beam its searchlight, or where it's hope to take its focus. Let me at least paraphrase some of things from the President's speech. Said it has become necessary to rekit and retool our arsenal to be able to effectively tackle corruption. Now, what dimensions do we actually start working through? I know there are issues of politically exposed persons and some other. Where again do you think the focus will flow?
Okay, so let me put it this way again. Like I said, there are many dimensions. You know, in his speech, he also made reference to the TSA. He made reference to the BVN, basically saying that if you steal money, you will be caught. That's the meaning. And with the TSA, it means that you no longer have unhindered access to public resources, because every dime you take, once it's allocated to you, the authorities are alerted. They know that there's a trail, that this money left here and it went to this person, and that person has a BVN. So the financial intelligence unit have enough arsenal to work. So that is on one side. So more of like, the public resources are no longer available to you. But now with this executive order, it's like, okay, even if you have stolen and you're currently being prosecuted, and we do not have access to those resources that you have currently, held back, right? Now this retooling and rekitting the whole process is that this is on the enforcement side, basically, to say, and if you see the executive order, it has a list of 155 cases, all of them politically exposed. You know, I mean, not all of them, most of the politically exposed, institutional corruption, some people who have stolen, you know, public funds by their organization and all of that, they are being prosecuted. Even cases of kidnaps are in that list, right? So when you look at those lists of cases that are being prosecuted, if you have defrauded people, 419 cases, right, and you're being prosecuted, but the money is still available to you. In fact, by the time the case is over, the money is even gone because it's already spent. So what I'm saying in essence is that when you're retooling and rekitting, you're giving the arsenal to the enforcement agents to now be able to deal with those who have stolen in the past. And while the other preventive measures is supposed to curb, you know, future stealing. That is how I see that. Again, we expect as CSOs other things that should be covered. We expect an executive order that will make sure that all public procurements are openly published, and all the beneficial owners of companies. When you say politically exposed person, that they declare their assets, for instance. But if you don't know the real owners of companies, then when people say, I have interest in this and that, but you don't know the real owners of companies, you're not able to link them. So we need more things.
So those are some of the concerns we'll need to look at before we go on the program. But you talked earlier, and which is part of the speech for the president as well, making institutions, making agencies and individuals to own the fight. Because most of the time it's as if maybe weaker institutions and strengthened individuals above the law, above these institutions. That is one area. So with bringing it back for the judiciary, how much of the fights have they been able to own on their own, to take in?
I think we need to interrogate this very well, though it may not be, the time may not have really allow us to do that. Because when it comes to institution, that is what I want to raise. When it comes to fighting corruption, I think the first step is to first look at the institution to fight it. Particularly, let's look at the prosecutor, those who are investigating. What tools have they been given to do what they're supposed to do? Now, going to the judiciary, I won't say because I'm a lawyer, this is what I'm saying, that judiciary is doing so much. But one thing again is this, and I've been saying that in any way I find myself, that court, they are not Father Christmas. They don't give what they don't have. All it is expected, particularly with our own system, is judiciary, they may even be see you where you are even committing the crime, but when you bring them on their table, it is as if they don't know anything. It is for the prosecutor to present this. And unfortunately, prosecutors have all the blame. All the blames. They seem not to do most of their work, and that is why.
Why is it difficult to do that?
That is another thing, and I think it need total overhauling, particularly. And again, most of all those investigators, the question is this: did they really even know what they are doing? Honestly, I've found myself in some situation that you don't understand what is happening. And at the end of the day, if the court should now say those who have been accused should go, it is the courts you see, everybody will look at and will say, oh, judiciary has done, the judiciary has done that. I believe part of the executive order, if I have my way to advise the president, is though what he has done, of course, he is commendable. We need to salute him, we salute his courage, and we thank him for what he has been doing, particularly being a politician, because I know half of those who are supporting him, if he should do a little election within them, we'll find out that most of them will want, because it's like, come and eat. That's what they call politics in Nigeria. So despite that, in the face of
brave
even losing his core, his supporters doing this. I think it needs to be solid. But I believe we need to go to the institution to strengthen them. And if we can do that, you see corruption will be things of the past. And finally, I believe now we should be thinking we don't need to wait until when crime is committed. That is when the president will say we need to seize their property. The way you acquire the property, all those things need to be strengthened. Because I know of a law that for you to even, when it comes to mortgaging, buying properties, you don't need to pay cash. Any cash you are paying above some certain money, you are supposed to be liable. But you see some people, agents will tell you we need cash, even 100, 500. These are the executive order I believe that the president should make.
Okay, Barrister Angelo, Mr. Horia, we're going on a break now. When we return, we'll take a look at the other side of what the executive order should be doing and how to strengthen what we have on the ground already. You're watching Nigeria Today. We'll be right back after this break.
The Nigerian Television Authority News 24 channel, your dependable all-round news station, offering you world-class news programs, documentaries, spotlights, promos, and information highlights. Take advantage of our network reach and advertise your interest, goods and services with us. NTA News 24, first among equals with digital broadcasting. You can reach us on Channel 21 Terrestrial TV and Channel 101 on the Star Times platform. For more inquiries, please call Coretta 0803 618 9986 or Henry on 0803 379 0884. Join us today.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching Nigeria Today, and our focus is on the Executive Order number 6 declared by the President, taking a look at suspicious assets and some of other attendant issues around it. I still have my guests, Barrister Kayode Ajulo and also Edwin Ohurie. Thank you very much still. And let's take a look at what people are saying, all the perception that this executive order is supposed to be as a focus on, and there are issues out there from the social media to everywhere. It's as if it's a perceived enemy fight.
Exactly. I think for me, there is this perception, and I've received that. I saw it online, even on my timeline, to say this executive order is actually aimed at stifling, the opposition in terms of resources, in terms of that, because if the assets are seized, they will not have money to contest. And there is something that the president of Ghana, Nana Akufo-Addo, said in Mauritania, which is quite telling. And he was saying in the open for all African heads of state that when we go against the fight against corruption and we begin to prosecute, it is called a witch hunt. And that has become a problem. And what did he do in Ghana? He appointed a member of the opposition, to lead the fight against corruption. And in doing that, President Uhuru Kenyatta as well of Kenya also appointed Raila Odinga to lead, some reforms in terms of fighting corruption. So one of the things I would like to say is that the executive order, as in my opinion, is an expression of, a renewal of the fight against corruption. Whether it's the opposition, yes, anyway. Whether it's the opposition, whether it's people in power, right? The question is that if you have stolen the public resources, you should not have access to it. It's a plain and simple fact. Now, the transparent way this process is run will determine or will show how authentic these steps is. And that is why I would recommend, and the executive order actually says it, it said that the general should publish from time to time, that's what the executive order says, from time to time, all assets under this that have been seized or that have been looked at or that will be impacted by this should be published from time to time. And this is a key part, because if the citizens know, if they are aware that this is who is being prosecuted, and that's why the list is there, this is the asset that has been recovered from there, and that nobody is going to touch, sell or dispose of this asset until it has been determined by a competent court. That's what the executive order says. So I think it's our responsibility to hold the government,
to watch out and hold
hold the government to account, to say, well, this is what it says. So we're waiting for that regulation that the Attorney General is supposed to bring to implement this executive order, so that we will see and hold them to account, say, publish it. We want to know who, we want to know what, we want to know how much. and then we'll be able to see whether people are using this, abusing it, or otherwise.
All right, Barrister, quickly, I know the nation faces this enormous threats from corruption being so endemic, and it's as if everyone have thrown up their arms saying, can we really help it? Overcoming this definitely is not going to be easy. And we know, we talked earlier before the break about issue of strengthening institutions and other forms of agencies. In what other way do we need to help buff up this, what executive is going to be giving us?
I think the other way is what we're doing now. The media need to be on their toes. The media need to disseminate the information, and even we have to be sincere. What the function of the executive over there is, even the president is like turning himself to the chief marketing officer of fighting corruption by trying to retreat. In that of executive order, let's be sincere. There's nothing new in it. It is already in the constitution. It's already in the law. If you check even order of forfeitures and co. What the president is just trying to say now is that, look, maybe Lai Mohammed, let me do it the way he's doing it. Let me, but okay, now as a president, you need to come presidential by making an executive order that is still trying to follow what it is. And like I said, when you are fighting this kind of thing, which is quite endemic, what you need for us is that the power of media, we need to discuss it. And I believe not only in the studio, in the market, virtually everywhere. When people are aware, then things will work. And apart from that, we need to demonstrate this. I remember, I must say this, there was a time when the chieftains of one of the ruling party was jailed one time. I went, of course, as a lawyer, I do meet most of my clients in the ministry. They kept mentioning it. Oh, I don't want to be jailed, like the way I don't want to mention his name. Yeah. You can see the awareness. And you know one thing about Nigeria is this: they are very, very quick to learn. They are very, very quick to be put in a straight line. But we Nigeria need to be seen example. It must be symbolic. And I believe that is why the president believed that let me even sign executive order, just like lifting some part of our law and try to raise it. Maybe tomorrow, for example, the president can sign executive order of using seatbelt. Of course, the law is there that we must use seatbelt, but maybe when he noticed that things seem to be, okay, let me sign that, and as from today, we must use seatbelt in all the cars, every passenger must be belted. That is one. But I know, and I'm sure some people may not say, why is he saying that an election is coming? No, the same president is not saying anything new. He's still trying to try to remind ourselves to say what it is. And I think what the media, that's why I mentioned media, need to really lap into this thing, discuss it, not only in the studio, even in churches. I believe the pastors need to be
yes, I know you said the media could be everywhere, but at the same time, it's also
and when I mention pastors and imam, they should know that in their mosques and their churches, most of all those money, being some people will take from somewhere and they will give in form of zakat or in form of tithe. They should know that somebody is coming after them. Who knows? Some churches may even be shut down because of this or that.
You know, I would say that. So there are different dimensions to fighting corruption. So there is the enforcement side that we're dealing with right now, giving them the tool, the arsenal to fight back, and there is the prevention side, which we all talk about. I think the key word there is transparency. So if citizens don't trust you as a government, there's almost nothing you do that they will believe to be sincere. This is the first thing that I think, if I was going to advise the government, to say, you need to build the trust that citizens should have in your sincerity.
I think that's what they did with signing of the Open Government Partnership.
Exactly. So you see, with the Open Government Partnership, where CSOs and the government co-create processes of reforms, right? Then you would see, when citizens know what the government is doing, and they are sincere and they are open about it, then they can trust. And then they can determine that whatever he's saying is true. It's with all the intent is true, the purpose is sincere. The other thing again is about the issue of value reorientation. This doesn't come from an executive order, right? It comes from celebrating at the national level real values. I give you an example. When somebody says, if anybody who has reached this to be appointed into any position, anybody who has a corruption case in his name, cannot be appointed, right? Or you say for chieftaincy title, they go through a process where to say, okay, we want to see the source of your wealth, right? We want those kind of questions where the society begins to frown at ill-gotten wealth. Then you will see that corruption will naturally fizzle out, okay? But if we don't have those reorientation, and that's the way, by doing that, I mean rewarding hard work and really you know, exposing, ignoring people who make it, you know, by suddenly. Let me use that word.
So is society trying to do that today?
So this is the point I'm making. It can come from the grassroots, from the family level, like you said. It can come from what the media celebrates, right? And then it can also come from the top. So you should reward people who are diligent.
So society should learn to start talking to itself and reenacting other means to support this fight against corruption. Thank you very much. My guests have been Barrister Kayode Ajulo, a legal practitioner, and also Edwin Ihore. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having us.
And that's Nigeria Today for today. My name is Blessing Abu. The program returns on Monday evening at 7:30. Bye for now.